Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Kingsman podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about marriage mindsets. That's right. It's part 2. If you're married, you don't want to miss it. And if you're not married, you definitely don't want to miss it because we're going to tell you what you got to look forward to. So thanks for joining in. Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks again for joining. We're so glad y'all joined us today. We have Marriage Mindsets Part 2. Yep. Man, I've been looking forward to this. We've been looking forward to it since the last time we did it. I got Micah Hickman here with me today and my good friend Todd Goodwin. And, man, we're back at it. Look, real quick, y'all made mention earlier when I got here about some people ran into y'all at the street fair. Why don't y'all go ahead and share y'all?
I was at street fair the other day. About 2 or 3 guys, just random people I don't know, just came up to me and just said, "Hey, man, I want to thank you for doing the podcast. We look forward to listening to it every week."
That's awesome.
And I'm like, "Yeah, awesome." You know, I have no idea who they are, but obviously it's making a difference.
Right. And they recognize you.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. Working at the street fair and had somebody come up and say, "Man, we really appreciate it. Like it feels like somebody's actually talking. That's real stuff that we're going through, and we love listening to it." So, I mean, that means a lot.
It does. It's
encouraging. Even if it's just one guy, you know.
Well, it's encouraging, and iron sharpens iron, guys. So, look, I want to tell you, we don't really know if this is just reaching the air around us or if it's actually reaching somebody out there. So we want you to let us know. If that's just by a comment, make sure you go ahead and comment. But we'd love for you to subscribe because we get subscribers. You won't miss a thing that gets out there, and we make sure that that's getting out to you. Every time we do a podcast, we make sure that you're receiving it. But if you don't mind hitting the like button, the subscribe button, we'd love for you to do that. That just lets us know that we're not just talking to each other and we're actually helping people. So that was very encouraging to know some people out there are listening. One more quick shout out. I know that Men's Alliance Ministries, right here, this Men's Alliance, you can hold that up, Todd. They, man, we just want to thank you guys for reaching out to us. Apparently, y'all have listened to the podcast. Men's Alliance tries to get different men's Christian organizations to reach together. And, man, they gave us a bundt cake, and I smell the cinnamon. And, man, I've been looking forward to this since we got it.
Is it bunt, like with an N, or
it's got a D in it.
B-U-N-D-T.
This is
I don't know. I just eat.
Man, that's good.
I guess I'm saying it right.
We might have to start a podcast. I got to finish
that's
out.
moist right there.
Yeah.
That's real good.
So, guys, thank you so much. We want to reach out to Men's Alliance. We appreciate y'all. Appreciate what you're doing. Iron sharpens iron. That's what we're here to do, guys. So all you men out there listening, you need encouragement today. God wants to encourage you. He looked at man. He said it was good, but it wasn't good for man to be alone.
That's right.
No.
And so he wants us to be able to sharpen each other. That's what we're coming to do today. And, man, we're talking about marriage. So that's a big thing that men have to deal with, most men. And if you don't, maybe at some point in your life you will. So this can be some good information for you today. We talked about last time, really got into the depths of like what it meant to be a husband, about giving up ourself and what that really means. Sometimes you say dying to yourself can sound so traumatic almost, like what do I got myself into? But we talked a lot about that and the sacrifice and all. I want to talk to you today and kind of go into some things that even we've been hearing a lot from Pastor lately, and about how one thing that can really help us in our marriage is gratitude. And how can we prioritize gratitude maybe in our marriage, and what does it look like, and why is it important for a lasting marriage? Does anybody want to tackle that one?
First of all, I would say this. I think you need to build a culture of gratitude in your marriage. And as the head of this household, that's part of my job. So early on, when I got married 35 years ago, even if it wasn't good, I thank my wife for the lunch. I thank my wife for the cake. I thank, because I needed it.
Right.
We created a culture of gratitude in our marriage, in our home, to where our children are saying, thank you, Dad, for just being a good father. Thank you, Mom. One of the things that we did early on was that my wife wanted to stay home. So when our girls got home from school, she was there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And years later, after they graduated school and they moved out, and at least one of them did, they said, that's what Bethany, she looked at Mom and says, thank you that you were there for us. So many of my friends didn't have that. But we created a culture of gratitude, and that's intentional.
Amen. Yeah, and it needs to be, because you're not always going to feel that way, especially in a marriage, because when you're close to somebody, that's the one who's taking the brunt of all the hard things that we deal with.
Those that are closest to us hurt us the most.
Exactly.
And the deepest.
Exactly. So it's easy to magnify
yeah.
those big things that are wrong when you're close to someone. That's what I found anyway.
Ain't no doubt.
But we need to grab a hold of the things that we appreciate and love and that we are thankful for, instead of kind of looking for the things that we're not, right, Michael? So,
Well, I think, that was probably, he flew by it because he's like dad. Like, it's just like common knowledge. But one of the things that I felt younger, when we first started, I'm like, okay, I know how I had dad, had Uncle Billy, had him and Miss Nina, like all around. So I knew how I thought, but when you're in it and, we're 2 years.
Different.
Yeah, you're 2 or 3 years past the honeymoon. Now we're doing life.
Right.
Now we got kind of some, and then kids come. And one of the things where I agree, it doesn't matter what my wife cooked. I ate it,
yeah.
and most of the time I would ask. And the rule I set for myself. Now she knows it now. I didn't tell her this until actually a couple of years ago, but a rule I said, if you cook it, I'm at least going to eat it and say thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there's only been, for one, insecurity. Gratitude defiles insecurity. It just, it casts.
Yeah.
So one of the
That's
things
good.
that she's, that I felt like that I didn't know, but she had told me one of her greatest fears was she didn't grow up cooking like her mom did. Mm-hmm. And she knew my mom was known for being a very good cook, and cooking and baking and doing all these things. And so she was that bothered her.
Right.
And she said, it's crazy you said that because you never once was like, yeah. The rule was, look, we're never going to talk about it because I want to respect the effort. Like you put forth effort. It's not like you tried. Watch me. I'm going to cook this thing and it's going to suck.
Right.
So I respect your effort. I appreciate you trying to provide something for me.
Right.
Now the next day, if it was something that was like bad, which there's only been one thing I've ever asked her never to cook again. One thing, swear to you.
What was that? Tell me, please.
I love salmon. And I was like, can you just cook the salmon and then, maybe some of the sauce that she used? Well, she found a new recipe, but it was like this glaze layer. And I ate the first piece. I was like, it's kind of good. And the second piece of fish I was eating, I was like, dude, this just said no. It was rough,
it wasn't
but
gonna work.
she's like, what do you think?
You asked.
No, she asked. I was like, look, it's all right. It's not bad. I like it. So we talked the next day. Look, maybe we try to find, said, look, that was terrible. Maybe we try to find
Another
a different recipe. I didn't particularly care for the glaze.
There's a good way to say it, for sure. Because to show your appreciation for what she at least tried, right?
And what that does is, you start there.
It's a safe place for her to be
Well, I like
who
that.
she is.
I like how you
Yes.
mentioned that about the security, because that's true. About that created her not to feel insecure, which is a big thing in a relationship. Because when you have that, when there's that insecurity and then there's a lot of doubt and there's no trust, well, that affects everything in a relationship.
Dude, I didn't know she was insecure about it.
Yeah.
It's not something they tell. How are you
Right.
supposed to know?
Oh, by the
she's
way,
in-
just want to let you know I'm insecure.
Right.
I mean, how do you, and it was a God thing that I just,
Yeah.
Somebody had given me that suggestion. Okay, I think that's pretty easy. Like we're gonna.
Yeah, and that's good advice. That's
You
good.
know.
You ever notice it's amazing how when we start talking about what we're thankful, we just go straight to food. Like straight to the food, It's the
Dude,
food.
there's no.
He's either that or sex.
That's come on.
We're true men here.
Y'all know it.
True men here. No, I think it's a good illustration about what you focus on, you find. I can focus on this isn't very good. Oh, I don't like this ain't good. Or I can focus on man, she took all her time to make me food.
That's right. Maybe the end result wasn't what you wanted,
Right.
but like Nick Saban says all the time, I'm not end result driven. I am what process driven is what I am. And so the end result might not have been, hell, and it happens to us all. But what I was worried, what I thought of is if I'm thankful, thank you for the effort.
Yeah.
Thank you for trying to cook. Thank you for washing the clothes. Oh my God, I suck at washing clothes. Thank you.
Right.
You
And
know,
you find that. Yeah.
Simple things like that. All of a sudden, if I'm rewarding the effort and not the end result,
Because you're in the process.
that's right.
Because you still got to go to bed that night
Dude, there ain't no doubt. Like, hey, there's a process for that process too, you know?
Exactly. So, but
See what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, you know, we've been talking about Thanksgiving, man, and how if we just practice in our own life apart from marriage or anything, but how it cleanses our mind. And, you know, we seen Pastor brought up statistics the other day, and the Bible even says, you know, don't be anxious for nothing. What was the first thing it says? Well, with thanksgiving, make your requests be made known to God. There's just something about when we really line ourselves up with just finding what we're grateful for, like focus on what to be grateful for, how it just creates a culture almost on itself, you know, and it just builds on its own.
Well, and that's, dude, I started thinking, like, I mean, one thing that you do, and it just kind of is like, if we're constantly, we talked about men, your words have the power. So, and we've already talked in other podcasts about how you speak it.
We talked about that last time.
So if you say it with gratitude, and one of the things that somebody had said, and I kind of do it with Emily some days, you know, maybe instead of saying, you know, why don't you do this? Why do you know? Man, thank you that, and I'm so thankful for you and that you're such a great mom. Even if you don't,
that goes a long way.
If there's things, because there's things about me she don't like that I'm not hitting all checks. But
we all have it.
Instead of me focusing on as a wife, she misses that, which robs my joy for coming home to her.
Right.
Maybe I use gratitude and start. I'm so thankful that you're such a good wife.
And then it'll rob
that you understand
the joy for you coming home, because you're creating the environment, the culture, like you're talking about. So going back to that question, for what I'm piggybacking off what you just said, back to what you said, was how do men listen and hear? What is some advice of practical ways to create that habit?
Nice.
Well, here's one of the things that I think I said it in a message I preached yesterday, but I don't know if it was first or second service. I was quoting this guy, Vladimir Shamchuk. I don't know if you've ever heard him. He's a pastor of a church, I think Washington something. Watched a podcast of his, and he said this. He goes, Israel only got what they fought for, not what they wished and hoped for. The reason I'm saying that is so many of us get into a marriage and we hope our marriage is going to be this. We wish our marriage would be this. But you got to get out there and you've got to fight for it. As a leader, as a man, you're going to have to rise up. You're going to have to come up with a plan, which means you're going to have to humble yourself, go to God and go, God, I know I need this culture in my family. I don't know how to do it. I need your help. And I'm going to tell you, if you ask God, I promise you, as a follower, He will talk to you. Seek it, you find it. He will talk to you.
That goes right in line. We just talked about our last Kingsman class we had last Wednesday. We went on the principle of vision, and where there's no vision, people perish. And we actually got to the part of, guy was talking about how, you know, when you have a business, like he had a couple businesses, and he said you create a business plan, and it gives you a mindset for the future. This is where we're going, and everyone in the business knows this is where we're going. And so we piggybacked off of that and went to, okay, well, what about our marriage? If you're a leader in your business, you're supposed to be a leader in your home first. So if we're supposed to have that kind of vision to have a successful business, don't we need to have the same thing to have a successful marriage?
However, I think gratitude though is the vision, right? I want an environment of gratitude.
That's one of the standards you set to create that.
That's right. That's the vision. And so obviously, like what you said, number one, God, how do I create that? And then number two,
it starts with you.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional. And I sound like my dad when I say this. I know y'all don't. I know. But
it's okay.
You have to do
from the tree.
Little things where you say, okay, and I'll never look, the aircraft carrier, my mom and dad's table. That's where we learned how to be thankful and shut your mouth and listen to each other.
Yeah.
And so one of the things is, as a man, like, okay, maybe just 3 times a week. Start small, obtainable. 3 times a week, we're all going to have dinner. And while we're eating, we're going to go around the table and we're going to say one thing that you're thankful about everybody else. Just one thing. It doesn't, not elaborate. And look, ask Jacob and Jonathan. They got their tail whips multiple times because them 2 kids they can't take nothing serious. It's not silly time.
Right.
I want you to, what are you thankful for about your brother?
Yeah.
What are you thankful for about this brother?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, some of us may have been kind of like, Well, all of a sudden we're not angry and there's not as much chaos.
Yeah.
Because gratefulness does what was you said earlier, that it defies
The insecurities. It takes away the insecurities.
Takes away, because now I know my brother's got my back,
Yeah.
and not all families have that.
Well, and some people say, just like a child could tell me, well, I am thankful. Like if I say, what do you say? You give them something. They never said anything. I said, well, what do you say? Well, thank you. I mean, I'm thankful. But the point of saying it and expressing it is the whole idea.
That's right.
Yep.
Because you humble yourself enough to realize I'm not entitled to that.
That's right.
Thank you for doing that for me, right? There's some humility expressed.
Here's a lesson my dad taught me when I was younger. And I remember asking him, every time we'd go to the store, I want to get some candy. I said, I need candy. I need this. And he goes, oh, you need it.
I feel
well,
that.
Years later, you probably hear it now. Years later, he was telling me something about, I wanted something. I can't remember what it was. I said, he goes, well, I want you to work for it. So why? I said, you have the money. You got it. You said you do.
Yeah.
Why do I have to work? Well, why can't you just give it to me? This is what he said. If I give you everything you want, you won't appreciate it. You won't grow up appreciating it. What you will do is you'll grow up expecting it.
Yep.
And we have not just a generation. We have several generations that have an entitlement.
Yep.
Not a life of gratitude. They expect it. And I'm like, no. And I remember him telling me that, and I got older, and I had to deal with it in people's lives.
And you know what that
I'm
leads
like,
to?
wow.
That always leads to a sense of entitlement comes from a sense of pride, and then I'm not really appreciative and thankful, and
Which
it
goes
always
back to-
leads to a fall.
But it's also an insecurity. That's why.
It is. You're right. You're very, very right about that. But when we do create a culture of that thankfulness, that's where there's always a grace that's given in that. You know, that's got grace that God gives even in that. So we know that, like as husbands, and I don't know who I'm talking to out there, but like if you're a husband or father and you got a home, we want our children to be thankful. We would even expect our wife to be thankful. We want everybody else to be thankful. But you said it starts with us. So the question would be, how do we demonstrate thankfulness? Because we lead by example and action. So how do we demonstrate thankfulness so that our children are
I think
thankful?
it means we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention to the culture of our family, and because if we don't, always looking at a phone or watching something on TV, always reading some book, pay attention. Sometimes it's okay not to be. I know I'm going to say this. It's okay not to always be busy.
Yeah, and I think we have to show them and say, I think there's speaking and there's also action that we are thankful and appreciative. You know, I can remember times just for whatever reason, I'm driving to work. It's early in the morning. I'm going to a construction site. I'm trying to preach at the same time. Going 100 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, as I'm sitting there in the car, just me and myself, I just start thinking about my kids, and I start thinking about my wife, and I start thinking about, man, I'm blessed. And like tears will start running down my face. A grown man, ain't nobody knows. You know, I wouldn't do it in front of people.
You're doing it in the car by yourself.
Yeah, by myself. You know, but it's like this gratefulness, and I don't know if y'all ever heard that worship song we sing sometimes, like gratitude, and that hallelujah. Like, man, like I don't know what it is, but that song grabs a hold of me because it puts your focus on how blessed you are,
and off of you,
right? Off of me and
all
onto them,
the things around you.
And so when I get in those moments, I had to come home and literally, or send a text or show appreciation. Hey, I want you to know I'm thankful. I'm so thankful.
Let me give you an example. About 3 weeks ago, a young man who just got out of prison, been in prison for 15 years since he was 15 years old, and 30 years old now. He just got out of prison. And he came by, wanted a job, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I don't have a job, et cetera, et cetera. I said, so I'm going to write your number down if I hear something. Well, that's been, like, say, about a month or so ago. Before we come to this podcast, I called him. No answer. So I'm like, dang it. Because I felt prompted by the Holy Spirit. I looked at his number. It was still on my desk. And I felt the Holy Spirit said, call him. I went, nah, I'll call him later. And God's like, excuse me? Okay, I'm going to do it right now. So I called the guy. And doesn't answer. Well, he calls me back. And he goes, man, you have no idea how much that means to me that you called me. Because, I don't know this guy from
Right.
Adam. I met him one
You
time.
didn't owe him, is why. He knew that you didn't
I didn't owe
anything.
him anything, and he
Right.
knew that.
Yeah.
And he goes, man, after he finally got a job, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm showing an appreciation for somebody I don't even know.
Yeah.
But how do I have that? How do I get that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to appreciate my family. I'm going to appreciate people that are close to me. Can I have a gratitude for people?
Yeah.
I do, because they are valuable. All people are. And I get that from God. And I'm like, Lord, you
That's
value
awesome.
them. So therefore,
He saw the love of God.
Well, but I was sensitive enough. I was not going to call him because I'm like, I got things to do. I got this
Right,
podcast
right.
to do. I walked away and God's like, excuse me? I'm like,
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I called him.
Yeah.
So my point being is that you got to pay attention. Pay attention to your children. Pay
Yeah.
attention to your wife. You've got to learn, and we're not very sensitive as men. I'm not the most empathetic person. I know that. And I have to go, okay, care. Okay, yes, I got to care about this. Care. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of guys out there, you're that way. I'm like, oh, yeah, oh, duh. I never thought about that. You know, I've made my wife cry over the years.
Yeah.
Not on purpose. I remember
Right.
one time said something about our daughter seeing angels. And this was early in our marriage. I went up, I ain't seen no angels. That's crazy. And I walk off. Well, I come back about 5 minutes later. I hear some sniffling. I go, what's the matter? I said, why are you crying? And she's like, well, what she heard, what I said was, that's crazy.
Yeah,
What
but
she
you said,
heard
"You crazy."
was that she's crazy because she believes that. I hurt her and didn't even know it.
Right.
And then that's when the Holy Spirit just spanked me. He goes, she's got more sensitivity in her little toe than you have in your whole body. She can hear my voice better than you can because you think you're so smart and you're in the ministry that you can hear better than her.
Yeah.
So you need to pay attention to what she says.
Yeah.
Well, but let me ask you this, and I'm
Say it. I'm just telling you what God told me.
and I'm not saying
I'm blaming God.
I am not in any way contradicting God or the Holy Spirit.
that's fine.
Okay, but I want to bring it back down to a really, really like caveman mentality. Was that really what you were thinking in that moment? Like, did you have that thought process in the moment where I'm smarter than you, I'm more spiritual, I hear the Lord so much better, that's why I'm saying this?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But that's, God was revealing that was in there.
Right.
It was an unconscious way of thinking. I didn't realize it.
Bingo.
But because he used that, but I was listening.
There it is. So, and that's what I want. I knew the answer to that because I know your heart. I mean, obviously, and I also know Miss Nina. She would have killed you there. But if I'm me, I think one of the things that I struggle with is I do agree with y'all where you're like, we got to care. We need to be more, I don't want to say in tune to what's going on, but just there.
Pay attention.
There, present. But when your armor's on because you're constantly, as the man, I'm getting bashed. I'm trying to be the head of my household, the shield. That is what
You're
I am.
always in battle mentality.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we can't be
Fight or flight.
We
baby.
can't be physically impossible to be that sensitive to say, what? And sometimes, and I'm just I don't know, but I mean that's almost unrealistic, isn't it? Like I'm going to come home from maybe it's been a hard month, and it's my job not to share a lot of my struggles, but also my job to invite her in so we can grow together and she understands some things. How do I go from maybe I'm not in tune to the Lord quite as quick as you are, but I'm a young Christian and I'm trying to grow, right? I'm a young Christian, I'm trying to grow.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's
how
part of the
do I-
process.
Yeah, that's it. That's
your
it. That's what I
process
was
is going to be a
gonna
little
say.
different, mine, because your personality is unique.
Everybody's
to you.
different, too.
So he's going to speak to you completely different. Your dad, God speaks to your dad through movies all the time.
All the
I
time.
don't see it. I'm watching
Yeah.
a movie going, that was great entertainment.
Yeah, and that process is different for
Yeah.
everybody. I'm more like what you're saying. I'm more of like non-agreeable. Like I grew up. It's my way to highway. But like I'm ready to fight all the time. So like if you come at me, I'm already in like defense mode. Like
That's
I'm already
right.
But see,
coming out.
that's I think there's where the problem is. I looked at this. My wife is not my enemy.
Right.
She is part of me.
Right.
We are one. So out of all the people on the face of this earth, and you go, who would you want, if you could meet with anybody and spend time with anybody right now, who would it be?
Yeah.
I'd tell you right now,
Yeah.
it'd be my wife.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
Because I love her.
But
Abraham Lincoln, that's
But-
great. It's great. But I ain't sleeping with him.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm intimate with her.
Right. But
And
some
you're
people, like he's saying,
Yeah.
aren't there yet.
There yet. Well, that's what I'm saying.
You're explaining what probably the best advice I had ever gotten, and it was real blunt, kind of, sometimes
That's what we need, though.
it was
truth.
it was
We do.
very simple.
truth.
It was very, very simple, and it was very blunt, and it kind of hurt a little bit, but it has changed the way I can actually speak with my wife about something we don't agree at.
Yeah.
It's when she says something like, let's say, I'm near what you say that, okay? My mindset is obviously that offended me, right? That offended. I'm offended. Why would he say that? Because he's a jerk, because he's insensitive. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't want, okay, but if I calm down a second and say, okay, hold on, before we go down this road and I start fighting a fight that hadn't even fought yet, all
I'm not
right,
going to fight.
Right.
what did he say that just to spite me? Did he really say that because he thinks I'm stupid and I'm
Yeah.
dumb and just to spite?
But because of her insecurity, she thought
that's
that.
them voices.
If the answer is no, then anything else after that but is dumb. It's
I agree
bullcrap.
with you.
Right.
We're not even going to focus
Yeah.
on that because if the answer's no, none of
Right.
the feelings go with it.
Right.
And then I can say, okay, she didn't just say that. So clearly, either I haven't done a good job of explaining said situation or how that makes me feel, or I need to maybe lay it out in a different way so she sees how I see
Right.
things.
Right.
So maybe we can find a.
But a spirit of gratitude
That's what I was about to say.
will override all that.
This is the think of it this way. Like if you ever notice how if things are going really good, let's just say something great happened at work, something great happened for her. We're going on a family trip that week. We're all excited. The mood in the house is different, and how all of a sudden now it seems like, there's less altercations. Okay,
100%.
because
I know where you're going.
we know that, right? So the idea though is like just on a normal day-to-day basis when we work, and maybe even more so when we're in that period where we're going through a lot of stuff. When we create a culture of gratitude, because see, Thanksgiving, like if I just made sure I went out of my way that morning before I went to work or whatever it may be to thank, like from my heart though, genuinely say, thank you for this, whatever it is. I'm not focused on what the stuff I'm mad about.
That's right. Just
But I
one
say
thing.
thankful. All of a sudden her mood's different. Everything changes. You create a different environment. We saw Thanksgiving in your brain releases certain
That's right.
chemicals
That's right.
that produce endorphins and things that make you feel better and happy about yourself and more fulfilled, right?
And you sleep better.
And
It's crazy.
all these things. But if you do it in your house as a leader, if we just think about how small that would be, me say, okay, I'm not going to focus on the argument. I'm going to focus on what's bad. I want to focus, okay, I'm thankful for that. And I express it with her, my kids, whatever. Well, that makes it better for all of us when we get home.
right.
It's like it creates joy and it creates that atmosphere. I think the demons that try to put thoughts in our head, that Thanksgiving like puts that anxiety and them insecurities far away from our mind. Because if not, our mind will start wandering in all them other directions. But Thanksgiving kind of kills it. I heard Adrian Rogers a long time ago. I remember hearing him talk a long time ago. He made a statement and said, thanks is the one thing that we can give God that he didn't already give us.
Say that again.
Thanks is the one thing that you can give to God that he didn't already give us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, when you think about it, it's kind of like a father, like me with my children. Like, you everything that they have in sense,
That's
we know it's
the
from God,
thing,
but
right.
Without us, they don't exist.
Yeah.
That's right.
But thanks is the thing they can give back
Yeah.
that I didn't hand to them. And man, it hit me when I heard that. It changed my whole perspective, like about, and so that's why you enter his courts with thanksgiving. We can't even get close to his presence without it. But I think when we create that culture you're talking about, it just does something for our home. And I think there's little ways we can do that. Just
Which
finding those little
then,
things.
when it affects our homes, it affects our communities.
Yep.
And it affects our communities.
That's where
et
it all
cetera, et
starts.
cetera, et cetera.
Right.
This is one I'm going to read a statement that I started a document, I don't know, 15 years ago called Potent Quotables. And I've got up to probably 60 pages now.
Wow.
Of just things that I've heard over the years. If I hear it, I'll go put it in here. The first thing I put in was by somebody who's not a preacher, who's not I don't know how spiritually he was, but back in the early 1900s, so financial guy, Charles Schwab, said this. He said, I have yet to find the man, however exalted his station, who did not do better work and put forth greater effort under a spirit of approval than under a spirit of criticism.
Approval, thankfulness.
Man, when I read that years ago, it hit me between the eyes and kicked me in between my legs. I bent over and said, Lord, please forgive me. Yeah. Because I thought if I just told everybody what they were doing wrong, that they would be able to do it right.
Come on, you're preaching my language now.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
And I was critical.
Yeah.
Because my dad did me that way. He goes, Todd,
never
that
works
was a
that
good
way.
job, but... And then he'd go, blah, 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 blah. So all I heard was the criticism, not that I did a good job.
Yep.
So I had to learn, I had to reteach myself how to be thankful for the people around me.
Yeah, you speaking my language on that because as a coach, I've been guilty of the same thing. I've seen that. Not, you think you're helping by saying, hey, you're good here. This is where you're bad. This is what we got to get better. So you're always looking to improve. You're always looking to improve. When we do it to our kids, we do it. And all they hear is what's wrong. They don't ever hear the part of what's right and what we're thankful for.
A young lady years ago, Mary Catherine, she was in my youth group. She's mom now with children and everything. Anyway, she came up to me one time. You remember Mary? And she goes, why is it that you never tell me when I'm doing good?
Yeah.
And I was real super spiritual. And I said, well, the reason I'm trying to help you be the best that you can be. And it sounded good. I said all the right things. And I walked away.
Super spiritual.
And the Lord's like, that ain't why you're doing that.
Yeah.
You're doing that because you're a jerk. And it makes you feel better about yourself. Man, I had to repent.
Yeah.
And I know some of you thinking, God, man, Todd, you get spanked by Jesus all the time. I'm like, yeah, because obviously.
I don't know. You're super spiritual.
Yeah, you are super
I thought I was. But my point being was that I made up an excuse. And I look back and I'm like, I'm doing the exact same thing that my dad did to me. Then I have to relearn how to be thankful, how to relearn how to be grateful. Because I was being grateful, going, yeah, you did a good job, but. That's a big but.
It is. And that contributes to insecurities.
Yep.
When I think
you feel like you're always doing wrong.
The big, things like with the, man, it's so cool that things your dad did to you. And not that he was bad,
I know what you mean.
I'm just saying as you
now, the
reference,
good things I do too.
That's right. But things how your dad. Okay, so us as dads, men's husband, how does Dad, what are things that Dad does to me? Number one, I'll tell you this, one of the greatest, people always ask Dad, because all of us say, like, even Daggum Isaac was talking growing up talk the other night.
That's his brother.
Yeah, my little brother. So he was like, Dad gave us foundation, I mean, we just had this foundation. I'm like, yeah, well, Isaac, how? Because not necessarily every night, but multiple times a week. And this is just one so small thing. Make a decision, maybe just one time a day. He would look at us, each one of us who were all involved in sports, loved every time. I don't care if you never hit another baseball. I don't care if you never throw another touchdown pass, make another tackle. I don't care if you make $100 million. None of that matters. For the rest of your life, you are my son, and I love you, and I am thankful that the Lord allowed me to be your dad. And so, that would happen.
They need to hear that, though.
That would happen. Now, most of the time, it would happen at night, after family time or right before family time. But sometimes, when you're going through struggle, Dad would stop you, and he'd be like, hey, let's set the standard. Let's set the foundation.
Yeah.
It don't matter a hill of beans what you do.
Come on.
I'm proud that you're my son.
Right.
Okay, and I'm thankful that you're in my life. Okay, well, immediately, Now, with
confidence that you have.
So, and one of the things that I was so dumb with was I just took it and ran with it like, hey, I'm not, yeah, I
can do anything.
Well, why couldn't I put that towards my wife where I look at, I don't care if you never wash the dishes again. I don't care if you never make a home cooked meal or if you're here. I am thankful that God gave me you.
Right.
Just, I would say like one time a week, start small. Then when you do it for 3 weeks, then try 2 times a week.
Right.
Or the family time over the meal where but my kids need to hear, just like they need to hear daddy apologize.
Yep. They need to hear that too.
Okay, my kids need to hear me. I try to do it in front of them because that was modeled in front. I heard my dad, you're going to sit there because we're thankful for your mom. That's the best thing that ever happened to me far before y'all were here. So
Reason
now,
you're here because of her.
And they need to hear
gross. But now, I know how a man should talk to his wife and be thankful for his wife in front of the kids.
that. Right. You've seen the example.
Which then she knows she's more valued than the kids are.
Because your dad was basically telling you that your value is not based on your performance.
That's
it's
right.
based on your identity.
That's
Now,
right.
that's got to be hard for a
son.
coach.
Huh? Oh, yeah, 100%.
That's what I'm saying, because
Like when you
everything's
coach-
about your performance.
That's the way we make it. But here's the crazy thing about that, though.
Yes and no.
The coaches who put the value more on the person and their
right.
character
That's right.
will actually perform better.
That's right.
Because when you make it all about performance, because that's what our job is, but when you do make it all about that and those tough times come, those guys will shut down, won't know how to overcome it. And it's a crazy thing how
They don't. That's right.
The
When they don't hit
relationship-
the performance.
That's it.
They never
it's-
hit it. They never hit it. Or they hit it. They hit it. They hit it. All of a sudden they don't.
It's
They
done.
shut down.
It's done.
Transfer portal.
But relationship,
Yep.
and what we're talking about really is what love is all about. When you say no, it's not based on your performance. It's based on who you are. Whatever happens doesn't change who you are. I'm still going to love you
Because
either
they're
way.
still valuable.
Exactly.
And they know that from
Exactly.
the relationship that my value doesn't come from my performance or how good I do or whether I don't do it. Just like your children, whether they succeed or not, they're still valuable.
Yep.
Just like I thought about these men and women who go out and they do something and they wind up going to jail. And I know those parents are heartbroken. But I can tell you right now, those parents still love their children.
Absolutely.
And
I don't know.
thought
We
about-
should ask mom and dad. They have some younger.
I mean, think about people like the son of Sam, Charles Manson. I mean, he had a mom, he had a dad, a mom that loved him. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's hard to fathom that because you see them as these monsters, and that's the way Hollywood makes them out to be. But somebody loved that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, somebody valued him more than what he did. That's hard. I mean, that's a whole podcast for another time.
It is.
Wow, the value of humans.
But you're on to one of my next questions I was going to ask. So I'm going to ask you kind of answered it with that. That's one of the answers. But the next question I wanted to ask is, what does it mean for us as husbands to set the standard of love in our home as a husband and how it positively impacts our family? So I guess what I'm thinking in my mind about that is, this is the one I'm just going to share with y'all, the one that hit me to where it totally changed my perspective. It wasn't until I had daughters.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
Not at all.
We're done.
yeah.
We're done. Thanks, crew. We're done. We're shutting
we
it
about
down.
to cry.
So when God showed me, like me and Olivia got in a little tiff, and I remember whatever it was, I walking away, and I remember looking at my oldest daughter, and I remember her just looking at me and tears running down her face. And it wasn't like in my mind, I was just like, oh, this is, we're good. But like when I saw that, what it did to her, man, look, I had to go back and just repent, like get things right with God. And God literally told me, he said, your daughter's going to grow up and expect her husband to do that.
Yep.
Well, the way you treat Olivia is how she's going to expect the man to treat her. Do you want her to be treated that way? Now, when I first walked out, I didn't think I even did anything with it. Like, honestly, I felt like it was all warranted.
We all do.
I did, because my perspective was off. My perspective was just about well, no, you're not seeing what I'm saying, you know? But when I went out, my perspective, it didn't matter what I saw anymore. It was
what she saw.
It was what she saw. And so as a leader, God, that's what God's always asked us to do, is not see what we see, but see what they see.
Well, one of the things that God told me years ago
Yeah.
with my wife and my children, I have 2 daughters. They're adult, but one of the things he said, however you treat Nina is how they're going to expect to be treated by their husbands.
Yep.
So with that said, my daughters, I don't think they know how to open a door.
Right.
Because they'll stand at the door and just look at it.
Yeah.
And they'll look back at me, look at the door. And Bethany one time told me, she goes, Daddy, that door ain't going to open itself. And I'm like,
She was waiting.
just a second, I'll open it. Open it, and she goes, and she turns and looks at me, she goes, you made this monster.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, over the years, her boyfriends have been confused. Because she'll stand there and look at the
She's
door.
standing there waiting.
And she's waiting. She's like,
Yeah.
but the thing is
But they
she wouldn't
expect
put
it.
up with
Yeah.
people
doubt.
that don't value her.
100%.
Because Daddy valued
Yeah.
her mom. And that's what I've told my girls. I said, the best thing I can do for you is love your mom.
Yep.
I said, because you'll see me loving her because I know God loves me.
Yep.
And then you'll expect that from your future mate.
Yep.
So I said, you don't have to worry about were they going to be good and all that kind of stuff. You need to be concerned with your relationship with God. But now I've given you an example that you're going to look for.
Yeah.
And that's what
that-
they've done.
And that helps. Go ahead, Mike.
I think, I mean, yes to both. Obviously,
Right.
the first time Emily and I'll kind of, I want to ask again, young Neanderthal married guy here, not as seasoned as you guys, in grace yet. However,
Just say it.
No. Go
however,
ahead. Because I know what
I
you're
am
saying.
I am right.
Yeah.
It's not okay, or it's not bad to argue. Excuse me, let me take that. It's not bad to have a disagreement in that
Right.
you are standing firm,
right.
and my children hear that. Now,
They learn how to fight
what?
properly.
Okay, yes, they learn how two adults who love each other and are on each other's team aggressively disagree.
Yeah.
Okay. But walking out is not an option.
Right.
Slamming the door and throwing stuff at each other and throwing and pushing it ain't an option.
Right. It's
Period.
the attitude in which you handle it.
That's right. Now, of course, I sit back and I realize, yes, it's a God mindset over my mindset. And a lot of times we fought or we argued over things that I felt like I needed our family to be instead of what is God
Yes.
saying.
Yeah.
But God, what's so important is, when I sat down, first time Adeline asked, Daddy, why are you and Mommy fighting? I'm like, and I thought about that. I was like, first of all,
The spiritual one's enjoying
dude,
the holy cake over there.
what? And I'm like, okay, whatever. Yes, Addie, me and Mom are not fighting, but we are just. Sometimes people don't always agree.
We're loving each other loudly.
That's right. I said sometimes people don't agree on everything, and me and your mom just well. Does that mean she's going to punch you? First of all, why would she punch me? I might, you know what I'm saying. But no, it's important that kids. I watched Mom and Dad have disagreements,
Yes. Right.
and never once was walking out an option.
Right. No, I think
And
I know
love
what you're
is
saying.
Patient.
So you have to go through something to be
Love is patient.
Right.
How do I set the standard? Papa was an only child, and his parents were not very loving
patient. Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Right.
And Dad shared the story. How did he find out how to be and he was such a good grandpa. I loved that man. He was kind and gentle and great and just fun.
Hilarious.
Dad, great dad. Uncle Andrew, great dad, great husband. How does somebody that doesn't have a good example, and again, young Neanderthal married guy, okay, we go back to love is what? It's patient, it's kind. how do I be kind when I don't feel like it? I don't know. That's up to y'all.
But see, the love, that's God's
ain't about
love.
feel.
And it comes from the Holy Spirit. But it is a process. The Holy Spirit is with us to teach us and guide us all. It's not like, oh, we got the Holy Spirit now, I'm good. I'm done.
Yes.
In fact,
Yeah.
even since the time God broke me and I had that moment with Maddie, and I do go back to it, does not mean there's not times that I've spoke to Olivia and done things the way she shouldn't, you know. I get what you're saying, because I think sometimes it can be portrayed, maybe some of you watching, like, well, that's Pastor Remo and Pastor, like, we have it. I mean, this is
And
not.
I'm not trying to portray that, but I did
No.
wanna-
I
it comes
think
across
that
that
does,
way.
because I even talked about this with our Kingsman. Some guys were like, how do we do that? And I just want to, you know, this is not like a Leave It to Beavers TV show. I mean, the cameras are just, everything's always great and smiling. And
That's right.
You don't see behind the scenes, because behind the scenes, we're just like real life, just like everybody. And we get in our own self. But I do think there's moments where, as a man, because sometimes it is a man, me being like, no, this is what we're gonna do. But sometimes it's God telling you, this is what I want you to do, because you're the leader, and it's getting bucked on the other side.
Well, which means, like my wife will say this, women have to allow the men to lead.
Right.
So you have a lot of wives.
But a lot don't do that, especially today.
Exactly.
Because they told, if you do, and if you just agree to let him lead, then you have basically allowed him to be this patriarchal, chauvinistic,
I'm not even commenting on this.
traditionalist. This is what
you're right.
really was said today.
Yeah, that's what the normal. The
100,000
I mean, they're
culture would say
saying
that.
on the New York Times
Yes.
that masculinity, the real masculinity, is the guy who basically just is a yes man and says, you go ahead and you do, and I'm good, sit back here, which is not what God ever intended.
Leaders don't drive.
They lead.
They lead, people follow.
Yep.
So I always ask guys that come to my office, we're doing any kind of counseling, I said, are you a man worth following? Are you a man worth respecting? If you can't say yes, then you need to get your life right. That's why your wife don't respect you. That's why your wife's not listening to you.
What he means on that, because you just said something, I know I saw Micah's face, and I think some drive a car. No, when I was doing what you're saying, I was being that old school. I was a captain of
do
my
what I'm
team.
told.
No, I was old school. I was
that's
captain
exactly
of my football
do that.
team.
Driving your dogs.
I was the coach who's like, it's my way to highway. You gonna do it? We going. This is what we're going, whether you like it or not.
I can second that.
You know, that's just, we have some of that stuff in us. And God hit me one time with Jesus and said he was a shepherd to his sheep. And I was studying about sheep, and he basically said a shepherd does not drive sheep.
Yep.
People drive cattle. You don't drive sheep. If you try to drive sheep, they're gone. They're scared. The insecurities is all there.
Yep.
He's like, you can do that with cattle, but you can't do that with sheep. You lead sheep.
Yep.
You lead them beside the still water. And when he spoke to him, he was like, man, because it was me. Like, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
They're so close together. Sometimes you think you're really doing that, but really what I was doing, I was driving instead of leading.
Because we are driven. As men, we set goals and we go for it. Get out of my way. I'm going to run you over. I'm going to get there.
Yep.
And I did that
Yep.
for most of my life. I would, about half my life, I would run people over and get where I was going. And then one day I read a quote by John Maxwell. He says, if you're lonely at the top, you didn't do it right.
Right.
No, yeah,
I say that all the time about Joshua. I love Josh because he was that guy. He was that run you over. He was that leader.
Yep.
But where Joshua failed, he was the one guy in the Bible who was used by God in such a mighty way, but did not disciple. He had nobody
generation rose up behind
who
him. They
did not know God, and that's
or
why we
his
had
mighty
judges,
deeds.
and that's where they was all over. And I think as men, that's what we're saying is, if we're going to leave the generation behind, if our children, if they're going to see it in our home, then we need to lead like a shepherd. We don't need to drive them, but we need to lead them.
And that's hard because
is hard.
we are driven.
It is hard.
And I think that, not to beat a dead horse back on the first one, but I think that goes back to, things changed in my house. Like it stopped being two clanking pieces of metal, trying to, when she started seeing that I was actively trying to run away who I'd allowed myself to be and run to and say, God, just finish whatever you got to do. Just kind of immediate. And she'll tell you this. She will say it point blank, like, the more he said, Oh yeah, well, look, I've changed. I've done it, or he did. The less I believed him,
Yeah.
the more he tried to do things to say, "Look, see,
Yeah.
we're going in the right direction." The more I was like, "No, no, no." But
You
it
don't have to
wasn't
tell
until
them. They know.
That's
yeah.
it.
I mean, she said it wasn't until I just know it was how you started responding and not responding
Right.
that I noticed that you had had a heart change.
Yeah.
And that's where I think if you're starting from ground zero, first thing is heart changing where okay, I'm going to set a standard of love. What is love? Thankful. Okay, so God, I'm going to show me just one thing a week about each one of my kids. Show me one thing a week about my wife that I can stay there until maybe you get moved to find another thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think what will happen is that because you create a culture, it gets easier and easier and easier.
right.
So
and
how
it
do you-
becomes part of who you are.
So now speaking my language here, and I know it's going to speak yours. As a coach, I hear that all the time. So I ask the question, so how do you create the culture?
That's the buzzword.
How do you create the culture? So like we know because we know there's coaches who have done that. And that's why like Nick Saban, you brought him up earlier. It's not just I win this year and done. It lasts.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
it's a culture. But that's what we're basically talking about. When I say, okay, how do we create a culture? Well, what do you expect them to do? Well, I expect them to hustle on and off the field. I expect them to give their best effort. I expect them to have a great attitude, never show bad body language, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I say, okay, where does that start with?
That's right.
Starts with you. Okay, so but you can sit back and talk about how bad we are and have bad body language.
'Cause
and you
you've made it,
they're
right?
going to have good body language.
That's right.
It's the same way
That's
in our
right.
homes. Like I can sit back because it's bad and I can say, well, I want them to be thankful. I want her to recognize what I've been doing. Do you
I'm
not
wishing,
see what
I'm
I'm doing?
hoping. I
Appreciate
want.
all the things that we're talking. And rather than us pointing those out, just start showing what you want in the positive way and they'll start doing it. If that makes a lot of sense.
That one struck a nerve.
Because that's what leaders do.
Right.
Because
You-
how many times have you said, or no, I mean, not you, but me. Like, how many times, like,
Us.
me?
Yeah, it's men.
Like, for the love of God, would you just
Yeah.
recognize the effort? Everybody else is
Right.
just hammering me, playing whack.
Right.
I don't want to come home and get hammered with
Right.
how awful I am on the other
Right.
50%. Like, would you just please
Then I would ask
recognize
you the question:
effort?
did you walk through the door and look around and go, instead of looking around and going, that needs to be picked up, that needs to be picked up, that needs to be
Right.
picked up, that you walked over and picked it up and go over and
That's
kiss
right.
your
Well, see-
wife and go, man, I'm glad you're here today.
Right.
I love you.
Exactly.
And not with any expectation. And you're just doing it.
Well,
Nobody
because
pays
what
attention.
happens is,
right.
and this goes back
That's
as
right.
leaders, you don't just get caught up in the now. Yeah, we're 0-40. Things are bad. This isn't working. But what we're caught up in is what we see it's going to be.
That's right.
That's where vision comes in.
When God said, Gideon, you mighty man of valor, he's not talking about who he is then. He's going to see him what he was going to be. The same way we sanctify our wife. You can't sanctify your wife if you don't believe that this is where she's going to be. If all I see her is this bad, whatever, you're not sanctifying anything. But you got to see, no, that's not who she is. She's really this. So I'm going to sanctify her as like she's that. And I think that's as a leader, that's the only way you're going to look and change it from being, hey, we're 0-40, but we're going to be 40-0 in 2 years because we're going to change the culture.
That's right.
Which basically starts with us.
The thing is, nobody
Trust the
ever
process.
reached the goal. Nobody's ever reached a goal they didn't set.
Right. So you have to have the vision, you set the goal, and then you say, okay, it's going to
What's the
start with
plan?
me. And if I want Thanksgiving in my home, I'm going to be thankful. If I want people to appreciate what I do, I'm going to appreciate what they do. And if we'll start doing that, what's amazing about it is they'll start following. I've seen it happen before. You let's just say you as a husband, you're home, you're struggling with some things. You don't feel like you recognize. Well, you know what? Take time to recognize your wife.
Unprovoked gratitude.
Like say, I'm going to do this once a day, whatever it is. And you do it. And watch what's going to happen. Watch. It might not happen the first week, might not happen the first month, but you will see if you continue to do that, it's going to cultivate a culture where she's going to start doing it back.
And I think that's a big thing right there is what you just said. And I wanted to, in fact, almost if you're not used to it, because I had to fight this too, because I was high. I was like, man, I'm trying to lay down myself,
Yeah.
right, and say
Yeah.
I'm thankful, and you want another. Ugh.
Yeah, and then
What?
you just go in a hole. You're like,
What?
I'm just carrying my
Like,
cross
tell
and
you
laying in a
what,
hole.
Pavlov's dogs, baby, we've already proved it. We've already proved it. Conditioned
Ring the
behavior.
bell.
But like God was like, okay, buddy, here we go again. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, and thanks to people in my life like Todd that are very sometimes use blunt force objects to correct me. Like, it doesn't matter what the reaction is.
Right.
You do it because that's what God commands you to treat
And
His
that's what'll
daughter
change
like.
it.
Boom.
Yep.
And I was like, well, it's okay. Yes, sir.
Well, you
Yes,
said
sir.
you said something in passing, real quick. You said
Please, just carry on
unprovoked
talking.
gratitude, and the thing is, we want to be thankful when somebody's thankful for us.
Right.
We'll have gratitude when somebody has gratitude toward us. That's still selfish.
Or you
It
love
goes-
because they loved you.
then that's
and then Jesus said you have
that
your
ain't
reward.
love.
Right.
You have your reward. I'm like, that's not love at all. Can you love someone when they don't do what you want them to do? When you don't get what you want? When your children don't clean up their room? When your children don't do this? Or when your wife doesn't cook this? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Oh, it's easy to love people when they're loving you.
And you know what? When you live in that culture, it's not going to change. Like, you don't find your way out of it unless, as a man, you start leading yourself to changing the culture, which
Got to start in you.
it does. And showing gratitude, man, I just feel like that Thanksgiving, just that is a easy way, but a great way to start changing the culture.
That's
but
right.
but
Just being
in
thankful.
a culture in the United States that's not thankful, that's
No.
me oriented,
Right.
it's hard for people to be thankful because you're like, they don't understand how you can be thankful for someone that
In
does
everything.
nothing for you.
Well, creating habits though, like people think, oh, you buy your healthy free meal, that's just, you don't need to do all that. But for me, I didn't grow up just doing that. So when we did as a family, I'd ask myself the question, like, is this really necessary? We got to do this all. And like I told my kids, I said, look, this don't need to be a ritual. We're not trying to create a ritual, but it needs to be a habit. That's two different things.
That's right.
Like a ritual, I'm just going through the motions doing it, but a habit's like I'm doing it because I know this is what I'm supposed to do. And I said, when we get here, we're basically about to give thanks in everything. We're just recognizing we don't even eat if it's not for Him. Like, I'm not entitled to it. I'm not even eating. So we're just going to take time to thank Him. Well, that's a whole different mindset. But what happens is you do it so long. I mean, I'm watching my son who's amongst high school kids, and he doesn't even know I see him, and he's amongst all of them, and they're just grabbing their stuff, and they're in the gym, and he's taking time to thank. Now, nobody was there. He didn't even know I was there.
That's right.
And but the reason why, a habit had been created.
That's right.
Where he knows I'm going to be thankful. And I think we need to create those habits in our home.
And I think the
Which they'll do
opportunity
outside.
That's right.
Exactly.
And allow the opportunity for the like you are allowing the atmosphere for a habit to be created. They don't just happen just by random. What we're going to do is like, okay, I'm going to set the environment
Yeah.
so everybody can, and sometimes if you and your wife are feuding, maybe we skip a little, but
Whoa.
but
You took it too far.
no,
now.
but I'll skip her and go straight to me and say, I am so thankful for you.
Yeah.
And then maybe say, do you have anything that you're thankful for? If not, then hey, bow your
anyone
heads,
say-
kids,
That's hilarious. Well, I know we've been here a little while, guys. I just real quick, but closing out, I want to talk about, we talked about marriage, guys, to you guys, and I think marriage in general is just looked down as almost an antiquated. It's just a bad deal, right? The whole ball and chain, but God told us clearly in there, like if we find a wife, we find a good thing. It's not good for us to be alone. That we could become one, but the process, right? Like we talked about the process. Anything worth having that is good, you got to go through some stuff.
Got to work for it.
And it's not like, and so I just wanted to, let our viewers know, I've been married almost 20 years, Todd. I know you said 35, I think, something like that. And you go through some things that, it actually makes you who you are, which makes you appreciate it even more.
The other day, somebody said something about me and Nene. They go, man, y'all are just like so close. And
Yeah.
you're like, y'all are just like each other.
Yeah.
I'm like, Nene went, yeah, because we're becoming one.
Yeah.
We weren't. We can
Becoming.
promise you that.
That's it.
We are becoming one.
That's it.
You know, it's not just we get married and boom, we're one. And now she thinks like me.
Yeah.
She's thinking, I think like her.
Right.
No, it was a process.
It is.
And you go through ups and downs just like you
Yep.
build muscle. You got to break
Gotta
them
go
down
through it.
so you can build them up.
And God uses it for both of us. And that's what
Yeah.
I wanted to, like, I guess, tell everyone there, because I think sometimes, especially coming from pastors, it's coming like, oh, well, they have this, and I'm like way over here, so I can't relate to this, man. Let me go ahead and tell you, there's been a time I remember throwing my iPhone and broke it against the wall. And yeah, I was a preacher. I mean, here's the preacher guy. Oh my goodness, what in the world? But like, you know, you can actually get in those moments. But see, I always tell, and then my wife, like if she said something or she feels bad, she just goes to feeling bad and thinks God's gonna strike us down there with lightning. But she just grew up she has that kind of mindset. But I try to tell her, I'm like, well, what about our kids? They think this. I'm like, no, you know what our kids saw? This goes back. You know what our kids saw? They saw real life. Because we can portray like we're like this and nothing ever happens, and we say, oh, "Okay, honey, you're wonderful." No,
The 1950s.
and it's not real because they're going to face real.
Leave it to Beaver.
Yeah, they just hide the other stuff, but they're going to see real. So what do they do?
right. That's
Well, they
right.
need to see me be able to say, "I'm sorry, I should have never done that."
Yeah, you
They
said
need to
that
see me
earlier.
be able to come in there and say,
right.
"God, kids, please forgive me because I did that. There's no way that should happen. I should not have ever treated my wife that way and your mom that way."
That's right.
That's the word. And then they see it's real.
That's right.
It's not fake.
Like
So it helps them learn how.
That's what
That
Miranda
helps them
Lambert
know
saying
more.
it. This ain't my mama's broken heart. Why the 1950s? You put some makeup on and you hide it. No, what they see is they see real human beings. Because
Yeah.
I'll agree. Like, look, you ask Emily, and she explained it this way. Our first 6 years of marriage or 5 years of marriage, I mean, it was all right. It was good. We had fun.
Mm-hmm.
We had great times. But I mean, it wasn't going nowhere like magical or special or anywhere near what the Lord intended it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that, yes, there was some breaking of the coal to start to shine up the diamond. Okay.
Right.
Now that
Right.
the Lord is breaking the coal and we're in a different I cannot it's weird, but I am excited that I'm getting a best friend that I didn't even really know how to ask for,
Yeah. Right.
but that is so with me that I'm really just excited to see how far it can go.
And you can't imagine your life without her.
Right.
Like, and look, 3 years ago or whatever, our first 5, towards the end, I was telling Dad, ain't nobody sign up for this. This is why nobody signs up for this.
Right.
Why would you not tell me this? Like, what?
You wouldn't he did. You
No,
just didn't
I mean,
hear him.
you
didn't
like,
hear him, I promise
nobody
you.
would. But you know
I
what?
told you.
It was
I hope we ain't got
still
many ladies
about
listening to this.
me.
Yeah.
It was still about me.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom.
Until the Lord kind of said, okay, we're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Until the Lord did that. And we started breaking. Now it's about him and us growing into a marriage. And my prayer, you can ask her, our prayer together is like, God, thank you for our marriage.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I thank you for my wife that you gave me something I didn't even know I could ask for.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
and then we ask God, we just ask that you help guide us, make our marriage into something so amazing that only you could describe it, that I don't know what to ask for. I just
Right.
know I don't want to go back.
Right.
Where what people say, God will restore you. I don't want restoration back there.
I want
Yeah.
something new.
I
You're
want
looking ahead.
none of that. The
promised
I don't want to go
land.
back.
Right.
And
Right. Let's bring you
now,
somewhere.
thankfully, 11 years into it, it's really kind of fun, like, to realize that I don't have to be married for 35, 40 years,
Yes.
Yeah.
where it's like, oh man, boy, we drug through it and we made
got
it.
through.
God Almighty, we love each other, boy. No,
Doesn't
like,
sound like
I'm
it.
excited to
Tell you
do
you
life
would.
with her,
Yeah.
Hey, that's the way. That's great, Mike, because that's exactly what I was looking for when we close it out. Because we want to encourage you. Some of you might be struggling through things today. That's kind of normal, Because when you, just like you were saying, Mike was like, I ain't signed up for this. You just might feel I'm ready to throw it in. But when you go through it together, see, God uses each other as you go through it to make us one. It's taking away some things from you.
That's right.
But taking away some things is producing that diamond that at the end of your life, you're going to be so thankful for, and you're gonna truly be like one. There's nothing like that relationship, but the only way to get there is to go through those things. So I just want to encourage you guys, keep going, keep fighting a good fight, but fight it God's way. All right, we're going to be the men God called us to be. I want you to be grateful in your marriage, whatever it is. If you can just spend some time this week thinking of one thing you're thankful for each day, express that thankfulness, create that culture in your home. Show the love that you want, the appreciation you want. Show it in your home each and every day. Find times to tell your wife, hey, we're just going to have coffee today. We're going to date 30 minutes, whatever it might be. Take her to Burger King, get her vanilla shake and some onion rings, whatever it might be. All right. I had a preacher tell me that one time. I said, man, I'm not going to Burger King, but that's what he did with his wife. He got a shake and some onion rings. I said, man, whatever works. They're still married. It's been 50 years. But I just want to encourage you guys, and we appreciate you listening. We hope this has helped you. And we'll come back next time, and who knows what we're going to talk about next time. I know that we'll be out of cake. Yeah. I want to tell you, Men's Alliance, thank you, because this is really good.
It was really good.
Can't wait to eat the rest of it. And we appreciate all you guys for listening. Again, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you comment. Let us know if you'd like to hear from something else or about something else. Let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure we take care of that for you, all right? God bless you guys. Y'all hang in tough. Stand fast in the faith. Be strong like men. God bless you.